Hello and welcome back. This is Scratch lesson number 4, decision making in operators. So we're going to learn a little bit about how to make decisions based on the changing parameters within a game or within a program, depending on how the user enters data or depending on conditions within the game. Different actions will be taken. So to begin with today, we're going to get rid of this cat because it's not going to help us very much. But instead I'm going to make 3 different colored circles and 3 different colored squares, and we're going to do operations on them based on their color or their shape. So to begin with, we're going to make a new sprite. This new sprite will be a red square. So I'm going to choose a red circle. We're going to choose the ellipse feature here. And at the bottom we can choose whether it's a red outlined ellipse or it's filled with this color, and I want it to be filled, so we're choosing this feature right here, or this button, and we're going to make it a circle. To do that, we're going to hold down the shift key, and I'm going to make all circles approximately the same size. So I'm going to use the magnifying glass and zoom in on my board here so I can choose to make a circle of approximately a diameter of 10 of these little squares. So I'm going to go ahead and make this for the red circle, and I'm going to do the same thing for all the circles in a minute, but I'm not going to bore you with showing you myself doing that. I'm going to do the first one for you by pulling it this distance, and you can see I've made a red circle. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so it's got a diameter of 10 squares. If I press my crosshairs, you'll see that they're already centered. If yours aren't centered, press the crosshairs and simply move them around so that they are centered right over top in the center of your circle like this. So sprite number 1 has been made, and I'm going to do the same thing for 3 more circles, but I'm not going to bore you with it, so I'll pause my video and I'll come back in a minute and show you the 3 circles having been made. Okay, I just finished making the 3rd circle. I made a red, a green, and a blue circle. Now I'm going to go ahead and make squares of the same dimensions. So instead of the circle or the ellipse tool, I'll choose the rectangle tool, making sure that it's going to have the fill color. I'll choose red to begin with, and I'm going to go ahead and make a red square of exactly the same dimensions as the circle. Holding down my shift key and pulling it across makes a perfect square, and it's going to be a 10 by 10 square. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10 as well. And you can see if I use my crosshairs, it's already centered because of the way I chose to draw it, or the way I chose to start. I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to make 3 more of these squares by choosing the new sprite again and do it for green and blue, and I'll be back with you in a second. And there you have it. I've made 3 circles and 3 squares, each having the colors red, green, and blue. We're going to use these to demonstrate how we can select them and make them move based either on their color or on their shape. So we're going to go back to our screen here, go back to scripts, start with the red circle. Notice how the Scratch editor picks names for you for these different objects. Pretty unimaginative names. Let's use some names for these. They're a little more descriptive. Instead of sprite 1, I'm going to click the info button and change this to red circle. And I'm just going to use all one word for that. I'm going to change the green circle to just that name. And of course, it's important when you program to use a certain convention to name variables or objects, and then to stick with that convention and not change it halfway through. So what I'm doing is I'm starting by saying the color first, and I capitalize the first letter of the color, then I capitalize the first letter of the shape that follows, so that all objects are going to be the exact same kind of nomenclature. Red square. And I'll just finish off here. And finally, blue square. Okay, and there you have it. Now, We're going to start with all these shapes over on the left hand side of the screen and make a really simple program that moves them based on the color I choose and the shape I choose. And we're going to use decision making structures for that and operators so that we can move exactly the color and the shape we want. But before we start, we're going to move these to a nicely order them on the left hand side of our stage so that they're all sitting on the left, evenly spaced from top to bottom. We'll start with our red circle, and we're going to do a script for this where when we start up, so on the event of startup, which is the green flag, we're going to move its position, set its X and Y positions to positions on the screen. So we'll set the X to be -150. And if you remember our coordinate system from the first lesson, X is in the negative X's are on the left hand side of my screen. So we're going to move to -X 150, which is approximately in this region about here. This is the X -150 range. And we'll set the Y to be up to at 150. So when I click the green arrow, my red circle should jump up to this section of the screen. There it is. I'm going to do the same thing for my green and blue circles and squares, but because I just created this code for the red circle and it's going to be almost exactly the same for all my other objects, I'm going to copy and paste. I'm going to right click on the top of this, duplicate, and drop it over the circles. Duplicate it again, dropping it over all of my objects so that I basically have that code sitting there. So notice the green circle now. When I click on the green circle, I'll see my X coordinates are set to the same as my red. Well, I don't want it to overlap my red. I want the X to still be -150, but instead of 150, I'm going to drop it by 50 each time in the Y direction. Whoops. So this should be 100, and then the blue should be 50. Then the red square should be at the 0 mark. Green square should be -50 in the Y's. I'm only changing the Y's. And the blue should be -100 if I remembered and did it correct. So when I hit this, there they are, all lined up nicely to start my program off. So next step is to actually make two variables, one that will hold the will be the shape color or the shape, and the other one will be the color. So these variables I will want to be accessible by all these objects. I want the circles and squares to all have access to these two variables I'm about to make called shape and color. And since they're going to be variables accessible by all the objects in this window, they're going to be global variables. I'm going to click on the actual backdrop or the stage, and I'm going to make these variables. By making the variables on the stage, they will be available to all the sprites. In other words, they will be global variables. So I'll make one variable called color, and I'll make the other one called shape. And remember, for variables, we do not, or I don't capitalize the name of the variable. That's a convention, a system that is shared by a lot of programmers. And so you have these two variables that have been made. These variables will be accessible by all the different objects, these squares and circles, within my program. Notice they'll also come through on the screen to show you what their default values are in the variables at this moment. The computer or the editor will set them to 0 by default. That's a nice thing Scratch does for you, but don't count on that for all different possible programming languages. Usually we like to initialize these variables, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. So we're going to make sure these colors are set when we begin, and we're also going to ask the questions what color and shape you would like to move. So to begin with, we're going to, when this program starts, we're going to set shape to 0 and set color to 0. Now, Scratch is also very good about this sort of thing. It doesn't worry about types. Color and shapes are actually going to be words. I'm going to type in the shape using letters, and I'm going to say either circle or square. The shape is either going to be red, green, or blue. They're not going to be numbers. So other programming languages would have exceptions to using a number for a variable that's actually going to store a word. Scratch is very, very lenient here and very, very nice to us. It will figure out and accept a word in place of these numbers when the time comes. We set the shape and color to 0. In essence, we've set them to nothing to begin with. Then we're going to have it so when the user clicks on the M key, and I've chosen M because it's going to stand for move. When the user presses M, he indicates that he wants to move a circle or a square. We're going to have it do something for us. We're going to have it ask the question. So we're going to say, what color would you like to move? And then, of course, the person will enter the answer. The answer will be stored inside the variable for the color. So we're going to now go and we're going to set the color to, over here in the sensing category, we're going to set it to whatever answer the person entered when they typed the answer in the screen. So if the person said red, the variable called color now will hold the value red. We're also going to ask what shape they would like to move. And we're going to again set the shape to whatever answer the person puts in. So the second time through, they're going to answer what shape they would like. And now we have a value for the color and the shape, which will show up when they answer the question. Let's go back to the red circle. Notice we've been dealing inside the stage here. We've been doing these things on the stage because they're not specific to any one shape. We're simply asking the questions of the color and shape inside the stage. So now let's go to the red circle and actually code what happens for the red circle. So when the person presses M, just like they did a minute ago, we're going to have to check to see what color the shape or color the circle is and what shape it is, so that if it's the right shape and color, this circle is going to actually move across the screen. So we're going to wait. We're going to use this wait block. Wait until, in other words, it's going to come to here and it's going to wait until the color is equal to red. So to do that, we're going to use these operators and use the equal sign and say color. Notice the variable color, which was created earlier, is a global variable, so it's available for my use in the object red circle. I'm going to set color equal to red, because if the color is equal to red, then we're probably talking about the circle. However, the square is also red, so we have to be more specific. We have to say not only the color is red, but the shape must also be a circle for me to execute the next chunk of code, which I'm going to put underneath here to make this circle move. I have to test for both the color and the shape. So coming back to the operators, I use this powerful conditional operator called AND. AND means that whatever the condition is on the left must be true, as well as the condition on the right. If both of those conditions are true, then this entire expression evaluates to true, and we will continue with the loop. It will do whatever you're supposed to do if this condition is true. If one of these is false, then it won't continue. It will stop and it will jump out of there, because in order for it to continue, both of these conditions must be true. I'm going to pull this little hexagonal decision-making block out of here, place the AND in here, then place the color equals red on the left-hand side, and you notice it highlights with white, so I can drop it in there. So not only does the color have to be red, also the shape has to be a circle if I want this red circle to move. So I'm going to go back to here and choose shape. Whoops, before I do that, I have to say equal to. So the shape will have to be equal to, and of course in this case I type circle. If the color variable is red and the shape variable is a circle, then we are indeed talking about this red circle. So now we're going to move it. And there's an interesting move feature on here which is called glide. We're going to have it glide for 1 second to a new position. Instead of x negative 150, y 50 where it is, we're going to make the x position go to 20. So the y won't change, it will stay the same height, but it will move to x 20. Let's give that a try and see what happens. So we start this up. Notice to begin with, there's 0, 0. If I press the M key, it will start asking me questions. What color would I like to move? I'll say red. I hit enter. It changes the question to what shape would I like to move, and I'm going to say a circle. Okay, notice how it came through red for color. As soon as I hit enter, shape will be a circle. It's sitting here. This code is actually trying to execute, but it's at this point where it's waiting. So it's waiting for this entire expression to evaluate to true. As soon as this whole thing evaluates to true, it will continue with the code block and do the next sequence of operations, and the next one is only just glide to this position. It's not going to do it yet. So is the color red? Well, yes, it is. So this left portion of my expression is true, and as soon as I've hit the enter key, it's going to see the shape is a circle, so this right condition is going to evaluate to true. And since both sides have to be true because of the AND statement, then if they are, it will continue executing, and it will be in this case. So as soon as I hit enter, my red circle should move across the screen. There it goes, because not only is the color red, but the shape is a circle, and it did indeed now execute this glide command. Okay, so this sounds pretty good. Let's do the same thing for the green circle. Clicking on the green circle. Actually, before I click on the green circle, let's duplicate this code and just drop it right over my green circle. So when I come to my green circle script, by clicking here, I can see I have the same conditions for the green circle. But the green circle is not going to wait for the color to be red. It should wait for the color to be green and the shape to be indeed a circle. And then if that's true, it will start to glide. Now watch what happens when I do this. I'm going to reset. So all my shapes are on the left. I'm going to first move my red circle. So I press the M key to tell it I want to move. I'm going to say red. I want to move this shape circle. And there goes the red. Now I'm going to hit the M key again to tell it a new shape I want to move. And this color is going to be green. Now watch what happens. As soon as I press green, the green circle is going to move, and it's not even going to give me an opportunity to ask to enter the color or the shape I want. As soon as I enter green, the green moved. And by the way, it moved up to the red circle. It didn't give me a chance to answer what shape. The reason being, the shape variable was already a circle from before when I moved the red. So it already had a value for shape, and it immediately saw that the shape was circle and the color was green, and it moved it. So that's a problem. As soon as I move one shape, I need to reset these variables again after each move so that they don't contain the values they used to have when I do it for a second shape. So to begin with, I'm actually going to go back to my red circle, and after it glides, I want to reset the shape and the color to be 0 again. Okay, now of course I did it for the green, so I'm going to just come over here and set the shape and the color back to 0 after I move them, so that there's no lingering value in these variables that will interfere with other things I want to do with the other shapes. So if I start again, actually before I do that, I'm also going to go to my green circle. I don't want to move it right over top of my red. I just want it to slide horizontally across my screen. So I'm going to slide, keep the variable y at 100 here for this one, and I'll just change it for all my, I'll do it for this guy to 100, and then let's try it again. Let's start this off. Press M. I want to move my red circle. There it goes, it moves it, but after it moves it, notice it set these variables back to 0. So now if I press M again, what color? I'll say green. It will now wait for me to actually tell you the shape, and in this time I want the circle, and it should move the circle across. Now that's behaving as it's supposed to. So I'm going to pause or stop this video, or stop this program, and I'm going to copy this code to the other pieces of text, or the other objects here, so that they move appropriate too. Duplicate, and just drop them in. Okay, come back, and there they are. So for the blue circle, this should be blue, and it should still be a circle, but I'm going to move it, keep the Y value at 50. And then for the red square, I'm going to make this red. We're waiting for the color to be red, but it's not a shape of a circle, it's a square. So I'll type in square here. And I want to keep its Y value to be the same as before. So it's 0. The green square, green, but this needs to be square. And the Y position should be -50. And finally for the blue square, this should be blue. And it should be a square. And it should be at -100 Y position, so that doesn't change. Okay, let's just see what happens here when I start this thing up. Let's go M. Let's go red. Circle. There it goes. Press the M key again. Let's move the green circle. It's always important to test your code after you make some changes to see if they did exactly what you expected it to do, because oftentimes that's not the case. And you can catch it relatively quickly if you only program a little bit of code and check it, rather than doing a whole bunch of code and then checking it. You won't be quite as certain where you made your mistakes, or it might be harder to find. So we'll go red again, and we'll square this time. Everything's behaving properly. We'll go green, square. Look at that. And finally, blue square. Let's see if I got it right. Perfect. Okay, so that's pretty rudimentary. It's a very, very quick introduction to using these decision-making structures, like the wait until. We're going to also look at the if and other decision-making structures, like if, then, else, in the next video, and perhaps look at forever loops, although we've already used them in the prior videos. And we're going to also add another condition to this statement here using the OR operator. So at this point, you should duplicate what we've done in this lesson, try it and experiment with it a little bit, try moving or changing some things around and seeing if you can learn a few new things. And we'll come back to you in the next lesson and talk a little bit more about the OR operator and different decision-making loops. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.